Welcome to the Women's Business Center at Cornerstone Alliance's Business Plan Certified, proudly sponsored by Stearns Bank. During this series, you'll gain tools to help you launch or grow your small business. Now, let's begin.
Like you mentioned, I am part of the startup kind of community myself. In a lot of ways, I have my own startup. In my undergrad, I was part of an incubator. I worked kind of how you guys are right now with a kind of a collective, a cohort of others. So I got to work with other people in other industries. And now in my role at the SBDC, I work primarily with startups. So I get to see everything from food trucks to an app to clothing and everything in between. So I feel very, very strong in this area because from industry to industry, it's going to differ a bit, but there seems to be a pretty similar process through all of it. So, like I said, I'm from the Michigan SBDC, the Small Business Development Center. We are located, Bonnie and I are located out of the Southwest Michigan region, hosted out of Western Michigan. So the SBDC covers the entire state. There's 10 regions. We're all hosted out of a college to cover the whole state. So we are a free business resource to you, and we're able to be a free resource to you by our funders, the SBA, the MEDC, and local network partners. So, okay, I want to get a good pulse check of the room. There's kind of, I can tell maybe a couple serial entrepreneurs. Has anyone started a business before? Does anyone want to share? Give me an idea of what it was. If not, that's okay, but I would love to hear kind of any experience you guys have.
I used to do Mayor King.
Oh, okay, my mom did that. I think that's such a good pipeline into entrepreneurship. Yeah. Okay, so anyone, you guys are in the startup phase, so would anyone say you identify with owning one right now? Okay. With my own startup, is kind of for a while didn't identify with being in business, and even though I was making sales, but then once I became into a point where I was making sales, kind of hired some help, even though I was contracting websites up, then I considered myself in business, but I feel like that startup phase lasts a long time, a couple years even. So, and then is this anyone's very first time? Okay, more Hanson, cool. Okay, so today what we'll be doing, I think you mentioned this is our first one. So
Yep.
very first step of starting a business in the startup phase is defining that business idea. And I often encourage people to, when they think of their idea, to think of it more refined. So when I have a client come to me and they say, I want to start a bakery, I like to say, why, what's the root, to kind of figure it out. I'll find out that, they have celiacs and they want gluten-free options out there. So, okay, we're probably starting somewhere that's going to be a gluten-free option or whatever that may be. So really start to consider exactly what you're producing. And then we kind of start to consider later, is it cupcakes? Is it brownies? Is it what of that nature? But start to refine that idea from bakery to gluten-free bakery, whatever that means for you. Okay, so you guys have your laptops. We're going to follow along in LivePlan a little bit. I won't be going over LivePlan, but this is a great tool that we use at the center to help build business plans, pitches. It helps refine a lot of these things as you start to get into it, and helps make sure you don't kind of anything fall through the cracks, because there could be a lot, especially when you're doing it on your own in this startup phase. Okay, selecting a business idea. Most of you guys are here because you have a business idea and already kind of started to pursue through it. But the problem and solution is something to keep really close to home as you're starting this. So with my own startup, it is a sustainable clothing line, and I started it to solve a problem. Fashion is the world's second largest pollutant. So I wanted to create a solution for people that weren't actively seeking it, right? So I saw that there was an audience of people that cared and thrifted and shopped sustainably and whatever that meant, but that kind of wasn't enough. We needed really radical change. So my solution was sustainability for people not looking for it. That kind of got more niche over time, and you kind of start to build that over time, but start to consider what your problem is. Are you developing an app because you can't find exactly what you're looking for on the App Store? Have you been in your industry for a while and see a very common gap out there that you are looking to get filled? Is the gluten-free bakery, whatever that may be, keep that problem close to home so you can remember your why and continue to fill that. Once you stay close to that, your customer stays close to mind too. Once you keep your customer close to mind, you can remember exactly what needs they want, their desire, why they're here, and you can kind of stay close to why you started. That's essential to business success. So, example, the Starliner food truck. This is a fast, high quality lunches are in heavy demand in the downtown area. Every day, thousands of office workers from local businesses are looking for lunch options that are convenient, affordable, and delicious. For all of that demand, though, there are only a handful of good ethnic restaurants in the area, and none of them specialize in Caribbean cuisine, despite its clear popularity in other nearby and similar-sized cities. The lack of local Caribbean food is also a common complaint from international students at the nearby university, especially those from the region itself who are looking for a reminder of home. We're convinced that there is a great market opportunity here for an eatery offering affordable Caribbean-style lunches in proximity to downtown and campus. That being said, I think probably some gears have been turning. You're probably thinking, reflecting on how this kind of applies to yours already. So I'll give you guys a 5-minute work break. Share with a shoulder partner, consider it yourself, maybe jot down a couple notes. If you want to call me over, we can kind of chat too. Just take a moment to kind of consider the problem your business is solving. Describe how your products or services solve your ideal customer's problem and outline your business's value it brings to the marketplace. Maybe if you have live plan up, kind of figure out what that looks like. Bonnie passed out a couple of our resources if you want to look over that. Just take a moment, and we'll be back in a second. So I want to reiterate that this is a difficult spot to be in, right? It's laying the very foundation. It's the 101 of why you're there. At the SBDC, we have several, I like to say, layers of consultants because we work at different structures of businesses, different levels of businesses, but also we have our niche interests that kind of naturally fall into place. So like I said, I primarily work with startups. In a main area I see being the issue is the front end of it was never totally refined. So this is, like I mentioned earlier, a completely free service to you guys if you'd like to register and be clients with one of us we call ourselves Team Awesome. So we have a great team of consultants on Team Awesome, and we would love to have these conversations with you guys if you were really trying to get in there before you dive deeper. I have a lot of these conversations often, and they're difficult ones. So I want to encourage you to take extra time in this space. Okay, so going on to demand, desire, and need. This is where you are really kind of seeing that problem in action. What kind of demand is out there? How much of a need is there? How strong is that desire? How are we getting people from their point of interest to spending? So is it a need? Is it clothing? Is it food? Or is it something that is being refined in an area that you see that could be improved in your workplace? A type of planner, a software, stuff like that. I currently had a client that wanted to come in and said that they had an issue in their industry going from tech to tech, that all their things were disconnected, and wanted to create a product that connected them all. A very niche thing that you don't even realize that you can innovate, but then once he kind of created that, brought it to his employer, the employer saw a great deal of benefit and brought it to several other competitors, and this kind of came from keeping that problem and solution to heart. So what is the market size and segments? Who is your ideal customer? So for me personally, I'll use mine as an example. In sustainable clothing, I have 2 major customer segments. So I have people that are here because they care about sustainability and they are here for the mission and they are really proud to hold that. And then I have 2 people that will openly tell me that they do not really care about the sustainability part, but they love my designs. They think I have cool designs and like to represent that. So I have found these 2 very distinct customer clients. And then Within those two, I've seen even more. So the people that do care, I see that a lot of them are stay-at-home moms. A lot of them are very much involved in natural and holistic medicines. And then I see other people that are like, they live in more urban cities and really don't seem to care too much about the sustainability part, like I mentioned, but the vibe that I have going on, they say that they really like and kind of represents their lifestyle. And you'll find that in these customer segments that they seem to kind of shake themselves out. But it's important to kind of recognize what those people might be before you even start. Another example, the Starliner food truck. Again, we expect our strongest market segments to be professionals who work in downtown offices, students at the local university, and people who spend weekend evenings at downtown shows, concerts, and other gathering spaces. According to our research, there are 2,000 to 3,000 office workers in the first category, about 70% of whom said in our survey that they ate lunch out almost every day or most days. The university has just over 12,000 students, about 2/3 of whom live on campus or in off-campus housing near downtown. Evening visitors to downtown are harder to quantify, but based on our surveys and other attempts at sampling the crowds, we estimate that they represent another 300 to 500 potential customers each weekend evening. Okay, now that I've kind of brain dumped you a little more, I want to give you a moment to kind of consider that. So, what are these niche people that are going to mostly represent and smallly represent in your business? So, you're going to have a lot of customer segments that surprise you. I like to encourage people to even consider that people who aren't your customer are your customer for someone else, such as a gift. So when I first started, did only female clothing, and I saw a large representation of men buying gifts, gift cards, and that became my customer was the husband or the boyfriend or the brother, whoever it was, and not actually the direct customer. So consider that. Consider what that means for your business. I'll give you a couple minutes. Again, talk with your shoulder partner. If you want some more insight, I can run over. We can chat about it. But just take a couple minutes to do that. I love to hear the kind of these kind of conversations happening because it truly does evolve. And I think a big part that my clients in startup phases see is this area of kind of figuring out what the customers actually are. Like when I first started, my consideration was college girls, maybe mostly girls in sororities. Like I said, I started off with all female clothing with a younger demographic. It ended up being anything but that. It was like dads sending gift boxes to their daughters in college, and then that became my customer. And then it was also men that were able to style a lot of these pieces well, so then expanded into menswear. Keeping a tab on your clients or your customers is really essential because they'll show you where they're at, right? And for a while, I think I kind of resisted that. I was like, no, this is who I'm going for. But over time, it kind of evolved, and they were like, "No, I'm actually over here, and I'm in need of this." So then it became that. So keep an eye on that of who's responding, who's buying, and that starts to kind of snowball once you start to get these orders, and you kind of analyze who's actually coming in, who's actually walking in your door. It's obviously a lot harder if you're not going for a storefront. I kind of navigated that. I never had a storefront, but I navigated that with markets. I loved seeing who came into my booth and then who actually ordered. It was never people I would have figured. It would always surprise me. That was great to see. Having an e-commerce store, you could still kind of collect that data. Obviously, with privacy policies, you can't collect as much data, but that's still there, and you can refine that over time. So keep an open mind to that customer profile. Current alternative. So now we'll start to talk about competition a little bit, right? This part can kind of be intimidating, I think, but I think it's actually really exciting once you start to get into it and start to figure out exactly what you have that other people don't. And this is where you can start to kind of capitalize off of that and grow that part. So who is already doing this in the marketplace? Are you starting, I'll do the gluten-free bakery again. Are you starting a gluten-free bakery on the same road as another bakery? That direct competition? Is there another gluten-free bakery? Is there a bakery that offers gluten-free items? So you might step into that place and consider, yes, there's a bakery, but are they a competitor if you have completely different products to the open eye? Maybe not necessarily, but to you guys, it's gonna have kind of a different balance. I'll give you an example of me and there's a girl 2 doors down from my workplace that also does sustainable clothing. In our eyes, we're completely different. We would not identify the same. We have completely different customers, completely different aesthetics. To us, we're not competition. We're actually great friends. But to the open eye, it's easy to identify us as like direct competitors. Once you're in your space and you know your industry better than I do or than the other person does. So consider what these kind of technicalities that may create a competitor may not create a competitor. Are there people who are offering similar or services or products? This is a good area to kind of like my friend and I. Her name's Emma, and Emma and I will kind of chat and say, what do we have that's similar? So we have jackets that are similar to us. That's not similar enough for us to be competitors, but that it does make us consider kind of what are our price points, though. Are we in the same space? Are we selling on the same platforms? Are we both e-commerce? Is it the same kind of competition out there for us? Maybe we'll even kind of transfer what is competition and what isn't. We'll kind of talk about who did just pop up in the area and is this almost collaborative worthy or is it a competitor? This can kind of be sneaky and you start to develop this the more you're in the space. But I encourage you to kind of think more creatively with it instead of I have a clothing brand, so American Eagle is my competitor. You'll start to figure it out a little more when you're in that space. Another example, going back to the food truck, in the geographic area we occupy, roughly halfway between downtown and campus, we face 3 major types of competitors. The first is other fast casual eateries, including 2 other food trucks, one offering Euro sandwiches and the other offering juice smoothies. A hamburger joint in Panera Bread and Chipotle chain restaurants. The second is the string of fast food locations on the edge of campus. And the third is the half dozen or so more upscale restaurants in the heart of downtown. So consider your advantages. This is where, like I said, it kind of starts to get exciting because it can be initially intimidating. For me, when I first started my clothing brand, if I consider American Eagle or the Crossroads Mall or whatever, because I'm from Kalamazoo, so that's my local mall, as my competitors, that's going to be a little intimidating. But my advantages are mine are handmade, one of one. I bring that small business approach. I really leveraged that when I first started. And I often found that a lot of times people really valued that over this mass-produced clothing that was being put out. So once I started to really leverage that and start to step into that community, that's where the doors opened for me and I found my niche a little bit. It's of course evolved from there, but listening to that niche and really leveraging my advantage instead of playing as a clothing brand with other big players was a major turning point for me. So consider what are your unique strengths. So like I said, for me, that is I could either leverage sustainability or this handmade one-of-one option that I kind of catered to when I first started. I don't do that now, but that was major for me when I first started. And I also want to use that as a reminder too that you can do that. You know, you can tweak and kind of figure it out as in the startup process. And I encourage you to, because this is the space you learn. And as you get older, those things are a little harder to tweak now that you have a bigger following watching you. So I encourage you to explore exactly what that looks like now as you find that customer. Do you offer something others do not? Remember, your advantages may differ depending on the type of competition you're comparing yourself to. So ask yourself, why would customers choose you? This was huge when I stepped into the shoes of my customers. I really started to see that, okay, you're looking for something in this mid price point. You do value this quality, this uniqueness, but you're not a celebrity stylist. You don't have a huge budget. You can't spend $250 on a single blouse. Meeting them where they're at and finding that mid price point, but keeping that value. When I became the customer and started to see exactly what I wanted, then creating that was easy. The customers kind of found me at that point. Another example from the food truck is our new food truck offers a unique combination of advantages that is unmatched by our competitors. Compared to the other fast casual options, we differentiate ourselves by offering a unique cuisine option. We're the only Caribbean place in the area. Better side dishes, especially compared to the one-dish Euro truck down the street. healthier food, especially compared to the burger place, and a stronger focus on local and sustainable ingredients. Our food is also more exciting, less predictable, and more suitably urban fare than the nearby chain restaurants. Compared to the traditional fast food of Taco Bell and McDonald's, there really is just no comparison. Our food is fresh and healthy and made with evident love and care. And it costs only a little more than the microwave patties and frozen fries down the block. Against the nicer sit-down restaurants, we offer similarly high quality and professionally crafted food, but with the convenience, speed, and lack of pretense that diners clearly have come to prefer. Our food truck is a public gathering spot, not a private country club. I kind of want to take a moment to stress from personal experience. Now that I've been someone in your space, that I've been in an incubator, I've had my own startup, and I've worked with startups. It's probably the hardest part of owning and running a business. I think a lot of people think the hardest part is going to be the grit of once you that day to day when you have employees and it's up and running and seasons are changing and products are changing, services are changing, whatever it may be. The hardest part is getting it off the ground because you're working with no momentum. You know, you're working with your own kind of determination. You know, you only have the speed of yourself, and that can be really, really heavy and something I personally wasn't prepared for as a startup. I was really excited because I had this passion. I had maybe $50 from the job I was working to get a couple samples, and I was really excited to register an LLC and create a website. And I felt momentum from that. But when it first launched and I got maybe 2 orders from friends and family, or immediately that was a hard space to be in, you know, and that was a really humbling space to be in. And that's kind of where you're like, okay, you kind of fall off a little bit. And then you're like, no, I need to get back on. And then you kind of trickle back and forth. I encourage you to keep that strength as far as you can, because then eventually it will pay off. You start to get consistent orders. And then once you can hire some help and kind of create some of that bandwidth again, that's what, to me, that almost is the finish line, you know, of a startup, of the startup phase. So it's a tricky spot, but it's not impossible, right? And continue to keep that passion of your why and why you started, kind of like we talked earlier, close to home. That's what'll take you through this. Because when I kind of was in this midpoint of my startup, I often found myself like, oh man, should I just kind of settle down and maybe not pursue this? This is exhausting. Like maybe this isn't what I wanted. That was a fun project, but I think that might be the end. And it's so hard to pick yourself up from that spot. It really is. You're looking at like half sold inventory. Should I just do a sale and finish it? And I pushed through that, and now I'm really thankful to have it pretty much automated so I can pursue my role here at the SBDC and help other people that are doing it. So I really, really encourage you to push through and lean on each other. That's probably something I would have changed, is I would have kind of put my pride to the side a little bit and leaned on some other people that are in similar spaces. You guys have a great network of each other to kind of share those hardships with, because, you know, they'll happen. And I'm sure you've heard that a million times. That's Entrepreneurship 101, is a million failures, one major success. So I encourage you to kind of push through that. That was basically probably the entirety of everything I'd have to say to you guys. I could go on and on about startups because this is my passion, but I wanted to give some space for any questions. That was a lot. I would love to hear you guys in your business, what you're doing, what you're up to. If any of this was relatable, if you want to share that, I'd love to hear anything at all. Comments, questions, jokes. I'd love to hear them.
You learn who you don't want to compete with either.
Yeah.
Like, and that's an important thing
Yeah.
to be okay with. So I own an event venue, and one thing we get from clients sometimes is, well, I don't want to work with anybody who's too strict. I want to be able to do whatever I want to do, which is code for I want to have a big party and not have any rules. And then I'm sometimes like, if you want to have that party in your backyard and I'm competing with a backyard event, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm okay with that because it's not worth the money for the risk that it's
Yeah.
putting my business and myself in. So, and it was very hard for us to learn to be okay with no and actually say, like, that sounds like a great idea for you. what?
Yeah,
That's your home.
yeah,
That sounds like the
yeah.
perfect venue for you.
Mhm.
Not here. But recognizing that there are
Yeah.
things that you don't care if you lose to. Right?
Yeah.
They're really not where you want to play anyhow. But I do know how hard it is, especially when you're new, not to say yes to everything.
That's
So-
such a good point. Yeah, because when you're in that space, you're especially and it's slow. You're like you want to say yes to everything. I went through that phase where I was saying yes to random orders, and it slowed me down. You know, because then people kind of didn't take me and my product seriously, and it wasn't something that was worth my time looking back. So I kind of stopped doing that. But it's a good point to also kind of recognize who's not your customer.
This was growing. I was making more money than I did last year.
Yes.
But at the end of every day, it felt like I wasn't growing because my averages were just like a few $100s less. But because I was selling in like many more platforms and more channels, it's like my total annual income was better. My business did grow.
Yeah.
It was hard for me to like get home from a farmer's market and be like, wow, I was $300 off my goal. Like I feel like I'm growing. And what's wrong this year now that like I have my experience and I feel like I'm growing? How come I'm not seeing it? So I get stuck in a tunnel vision of like my day-to-day operations and my day-to-day sales, and I have a hard time looking like, okay, let's compare 2024 to 2020 and like see how much I've grown. So
that's so real.
I feel like I need like regular reminders to like, okay, go back and see where you were like 10 years ago when you started, and not like compete with. Well, I do have competitors because I sell at markets where there's other vendors.
Yeah, sure.
Like I say my biggest competitor is myself and be like, okay, last year at this Christmas market, I made this much money.
Yeah.
Next year, I'm going to do double. And if I don't hit that, I'm like, wow, like what was worth it? But so I would say my biggest competitor is myself, and I have to like get myself out of that headspace, and I get stuck there a lot. And that works into like my mental health of like, is my business growing? Like,
Right.
have I plateaued? Have I sold to all of my customers in this area? And it's like I don't even realize that I'm growing a lot of times.
Yeah, that's such a real example. Thank you for sharing that. Because when I was doing markets for a while too, it was also like finding out that some markets are just better than others. That was a huge mental shift. Like I was like, I made 100 at that one, and 60 here. And
Like some days are just
yes, right. And you can't control that. Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And I think you're so right. It just doesn't go as far as it does right now. And I mean, that's so far out of our control, you know. A little bit about that during the breakout where my marketing went from, here's my a product for women only, or that's my target audience, and I'm marketing in that area. It went from that to being my marketing then went to gifts for her. Anniversary idea. I package it up for the guy. You don't have to do anything but put your credit card information in. Like I got it all for you. I'll package it up really nice, and then so I tweaked my marketing to look like that. The packaging looks nice, so you can give it to her like this. You don't have to do anything. Yeah. Yes. Yes. So yeah, and that tweak was huge. When I first started, I think I was getting men that were like, oh, my daughter would like that, or my wife would like that. And like ones that were really kind of intentional like that. But then once I started to kind of position it as this is for you to get for her, then it opened up like the rest of that demographic with that small tweak. I think I added a bow at one point, but that was about it. Yeah, marketing, totally. It is really like a change of language that changes that, because a lot of times like what I found out is they weren't even thinking about it as a gift, until I told them this could be a gift. Oh yeah.
Good morning.
Morning.
My questions as you were talking, like I start thinking about my plans, like what I want. My problem in doing business, any kind of business, is the pricing. Like
Yes.
it's always hard. Like I don't know
Yes.
because I don't want to take advantage of people.
Mm-hmm.
And so and if you're going to hire other people, you have to be able to sustain yourself and the other person. But it's hard. Like I don't know how to price. Like
absolutely.
Regardless, I used to be like a beauty consultant. Mm-hmm. It was always hard when I tell the person the price and they're like, oh my God, that's so expensive. So I'm always willing to give them a discount.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to do that.
I call that with my clients and one of our other consultants. We've kind of used the term that the emotional discount that we give them, but it's easier when you start to find the literal number. So there's nothing there's no price gouging, there's no like greedy profit margins, so any of that, but you are hitting your numbers. You're making sure your overhead's covered, that there is a profit margin, and then there's enough to go back into your business. I actually created, because that's a huge thing I found with a lot of my startups, that and what would my wholesale price be? That's always the second question, and how to calculate that. So I actually kind of created this spreadsheet so you can approach it with a more literal approach.
A service because you don't have the tangible like cost that or you don't think you have the tangible cost.
Yeah, right.
People are potentially paying for your time, paying for your space, paying for something that's not maybe as tangible.
Yep.
But you're completely right on the emotional pricing
Yeah.
because we discount ourselves all the time.
That's the first thing to get discounted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're not making money on the labor. We're not making money on the real time that we put into it. Like they gotta pay for the time we're spending on marketing to get them too. It's not just the time that you pay for them to have the one service. It's the overhead of the entire business. So I think as you build your business plan and you have a better understanding of the financials behind what you're building, you'll feel more comfortable. And let me tell you, don't price just based on what your competitors are pricing because they may not be making money and they'll be out of business the next day too. So, it's
yeah, totally.
You have to kind of know what your product or your service needs to make to stay in business.
I also found out quickly that my competitor was like streamlining their manufacturing. It had like way less cost than me. So I'm like, oh, I wouldn't make money off of that. So that's a tricky spot to be in. I just really encourage you to look at it literally. That's what I tell my startups that are like, I feel like I could sell this for $10. People would probably pay that. But then if we look at it, that barely covers the overhead, all the expenses. And when you get to that point, then you don't have room for the emotional discount, and you're hitting your benchmarks when you present them that price and they cringe and you're like, yeah.
And this goes back to kind of like also having crucial and critical conversations, and your price is your price. And not only are they paying for whatever your product is, but they're paying for all the work behind whatever you had to do to get that product and do, create the product.
These like businesses have probably 500 workers behind them on an assembly line to create this when we are touching and creating that product and delivering it to them. So they are buying that slower. That's a luxury, to have that. So keep that in mind that you often are kind of competing with these lower prices, but for a reason. Especially in my like sustainable space, I often say that if you're not paying here with fast fashion or whatever it may be, you're paying somewhere else because it's oftentimes a huge industry behind it. So, and you're not a huge industry, so they're paying for that luxury of being so close to the source.
If you're taking away from family and friends and time you could be spending with others because you're doing something that you're literally selling for free that you're not making money off of, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, your time is worth something, and you will find if your product or service is good, you will find people that are willing to pay that.
Yeah.
Yep. And it sometimes our friends are our worst.
Yes.
It's like, do I get the friend discount? Yes, you do. I am your friend.
That's so true. That was so shocking when I first started, where I was like, what do you mean half off? Like, I thought you'd be the first one to be here, like, to support it. Yeah, right. Yeah, that was like a rude awakening. But yeah, no, that it's a luxury to be close to it. Like, if you start, I keep using a bakery as an example, but if you start a bakery, it's, because you're good at it and you have these recipes you want to bring to the world, you have something to give. So, that's the luxury of shopping with you. So, yeah.
Should you at least
you have to be very aware of the competitors.
Yeah.
I mean, I have competitors that have been open for 20 years. Well, they no longer have a loan. They no longer, they didn't have to put a $100,000 fire suppressant system in because the laws changed before I opened. So, so their profit margin is nice. Mine is not.
Okay.
So I am at par with them And I personally make sure I sit within the competition, but I'm not the highest, I'm not the lowest. But I also know, like, if I'm not getting that amount, that I'm doing it for free. So you kind of got to be smart too where your competitors are. I mean, I know in the big three area, it's a freaking mess all over the place. It's like what city you are in could be cheaper, where and who you market, if you're cottage food, if you have the overhead of a bricks and mortar, but still the work is intense and it's a perishable item. So if you don't sell it that day, you just lost the money on that. So it's you gotta have all that comes exactly. It all comes in to be part of it. But yeah, you can't ignore the competition, but you can't have the competition set. Like, don't try to beat the lowest guy in the market. They're likely not making money.
Yeah.
Or there's somebody who's been around for a long time and they don't have the same overhead situation.
Yeah, that's a great point. I always tried to steer people away from being the most affordable option, because that one's the easiest one to do. Especially in this economy, we're flooded with that a lot. That's the easiest way to compete is a price difference. So I encourage people to look at your advantage as quality. So like my advantage is the sustainable yet quality and something you would actually wear rather than my price point. You know,
Like,
not the
we try to
affordable
give value
option.
because we have an entire barn full of decor. So we'll say, hey, we're affordable. We also will let you use any of this decor. You don't have to pay for that. So we add value in different places to make it affordable, where we can still stay competitive.
Yes.
But it's like we already got that because either we inherited it from a past event or we bought it for our own. And so we're just kind of storing it and keeping it because you never know when you need that piece. But it does add value to some of the brides, especially those that are on a budget and they're looking to do their own decor. So that they're like, oh, that's like that could be a differentiator for them. Where they're like, oh, that's great. Like I can go through her catalog of stuff, etc.
Thank you for that. I'll make that my closing remarks. Thank you guys. This was great to have conversations with you. I truly love this. Like I said, I'm so passionate in this area. So it was great to connect with you guys that are in this space. I do encourage you to register for our free services. I would love to connect with you more and connect with some even more resources. We worked very closely together, so we have a lot of complimentary stuff. So you have Bonnie's card, which I think has our website on it. Yep, follow that to register. Free. No free trial. Won't cost you something later. So yeah, please do that. Thanks, guys. This is great. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time for more strategies to empower your business success.